All right, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a doctor, a lawyer, and a woman that I'm afraid of. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand to your feet and greet Dr. Simone Gold.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There is nothing like being at a Clay Clark event, yeah? It's so enjoyable. Thank you. I love being amongst friends. Thank you. Thank you. I love you too, actually. That's why I do what I do. So, as a physician and an attorney, and the founder of America's Frontline Doctors, I've said since March 2020 that we have a medical issue, but we have a legal crisis. It has only gotten much worse. The reality is that we are living under tyranny that we never thought was possible in America. It appears that most people don't realize what has happened already and what will happen unless we fight hard and intelligently. Let me tell you first what the current reality is, then I will describe the real war, and lastly, what effective fighting looks like. First, a dose of reality. We have lost almost all of our constitutional rights. I hope this loss is temporary, but we only retain right now with a very big struggle the Second Amendment. The First Amendment, freedom of religion, gone, right? We don't even need to belabor that, what happened this past year, shameful. Free speech, gone. The silencing of the majority and the silencing of critical thinkers. I try to teach people I don't need a First Amendment freedom of speech to say roses are beautiful, right? I only need the First Amendment to say things that other people don't want to hear. Gone. Free press, gone. Corrupted, right? And also monopoly. The Trusted News Initiative in December 2020, all the media got together and created this thing called the Trusted News Initiative right out of George Orwell's 1984, where they all agreed not to report anything that disagreed with the vaccine narrative. Peacefully assemble, gone. 6 feet, right? 6 feet apart, less than 10 people, stay masked. No more right to assemble. The right to petition the government, etc. Bodily integrity is our Fourth Amendment. We know what's going there. People are losing their right to bodily integrity. Voluntarily, they're giving it up, but that's through propaganda. And involuntarily, through coercion, job loss. The Sixth Amendment, the right to speedy and public trial, just gone. We all know people that are languishing in jail now with no trial. Seventh Amendment, jury trial, just eliminated during lockdowns, just eliminated, right? It's in the Constitution, eliminated. The Eighth Amendment, no excessive bail, no cruel and unusual punishment. There's people from January 6th that were arrested that were kept in solitary confinement for months. Pre-trial, no prior history of any violence. Constitution. You must accept that medical tyranny is just the mechanism, it's just the means to control us. It could be religious tyranny. It could be economic tyranny. It happens to be medical. And as a doctor and a lawyer and founder of America's Frontline Doctors, I have some special expertise to share. But you must not obsess over the medical. Start obsessing over the tyranny. The reason right? The reason the communists decided to use medical tyranny over other forms of tyranny is it's actually the most effective. It is silent, it is stealth, it causes great fear and cowardice, it causes a hyper-reliance on authority, and it distracts people from the real enemy. The vaxxed think their enemy are the normals think their enemy are the vaxxed, but our mutual enemy is the tyrannical overlords who want to divide and conquer both groups. Just as they pit black against white, rich against poor, male against female, now vaxxed and the normals are just another exploitable division to the overlords. I'm gonna spend 2 minutes just reviewing the lies that we've all heard this past year. I know you're familiar, but just to recount them so you understand how severe a crisis we're in. You were told the problem was the virus when doctors knew from the beginning that it was the individual's susceptibility to the virus, not the actual virus. We knew that because children were not dying. So if it was actually just the virus, not the susceptibility, people would have been dying of all ages, and that was simply not the case. We knew that really since February 2020. Number two, you were told there's this thing of asymptomatic transmission. Now, it flew in the face of all your common sense, but you were willing to be open-minded. Maybe this was new and different. There's absolutely no substantial asymptomatic transmission. We know this for the fact checkers out there who might be watching this. There was a huge study of all places in Wuhan, China. They had 10 million people, PCR positive, no symptoms. And they looked back and they said, how many people did these 10 million people make clinically sick? And the answer is zero. Zero. No such thing. There were other studies, but that was the largest. The age of death from COVID exceeds the life expectancy in America. In other words, it takes you out at the end of your life. What a shock. Now, the fourth lie is that early treatment is dangerous. This is one of the ways I knew we were being propagandized when doctors were saying to doctors, oh, hydroxychloroquine, very unsafe. I'm like, what are you talking about? 65 years of safety. They told you it was not safe. Then the next lie was that it doesn't work. For the fact checkers out there, let's look at the nation of India. Soon as they gave their people ivermectin, deaths plummeted. Sixth lie, right? The sixth lie was that lockdowns do work. All the states and the countries that locked down did not do any better than the states that didn't. They told you masks worked. By the way, that 6-foot rule, I don't know if you caught the news about a week ago, the former commissioner of the FDA publicly stated that the 6-foot social distancing rule recommended by public health officials was arbitrary and nobody knows where it came from. We knew that, right? But he admitted it. Scott Gottlieb, FDA. Now, here's 2 minutes on the latest facts because I know you're dying to be well informed. 1, the virus initially was the Wuhan virus variant. Now it's all Delta variant. That's basically gone. The initial one's gone, now we're only in Delta. Number 2, the vaccines, or I should say the shots, the inoculations, were modestly effective at reducing symptoms of Wuhan. But the shots are totally ineffective against Delta. Now, for the fact checkers, this is not just independent doctors saying this. The CDC director said it. It's also on the cdc.gov website. The cdc.gov website has a pie chart of what the virus is. More than 99% of the virus out there is Delta. The CDC director on national television said the shots don't stop transmission of Delta. Okay. The most vaccinated nations in the world, for the fact checkers, Israel and the Seychelles, right? Israel's over 85% vaccinated. Seychelles is about the same. Have very high rates of Delta raging amongst their people. Israel's heavily vaccinated. 2-3 miles down the road in the Palestinian territories where they're not vaccinated, they're not having Delta rage. Closer to home, Barnstable, Massachusetts, published in the CDC, MMWR, August 6th, 74% are vaxxed, Delta raging. University of California, San Diego, healthcare workers, published in New England Journal of Medicine, 87% of the healthcare workers are vaxxed, and yet 57% of the people that got sick in an episode were vaxxed. Okay, so, another big piece of news that came about 2 weeks ago. Maybe some of you had seen that New England Journal of Medicine study that purported that the shots did not harm pregnancies. That was a travesty. That was back in June. We knew it was wrong. When you read back into the study, it turned out that the way they published that, it was a sleight of hand. They lumped first, second, and third trimester pregnancy risks all together. That's something that's never done with doctors. We don't say that, a 10-week pregnancy is like a 30-week pregnancy. It turns out the miscarriage rate is very, very high in early pregnancies. If you take the vax, it's about 83%, something like that. That New England Journal of Medicine study was just corrected about 2 weeks ago. I'm saying, and I'm glad there was no applause in that, because it's shameful that they published it, and it's shameful that once they did this correction at the behest of independent doctors, it doesn't make front page news. Now, the vaccinated are super spreaders of Delta. Here's the facts for the fact checkers. Study lead author Chau, C-H-A-U, from a University of Oxford affiliate in Vietnam, and lead author Liu, L-I-U, from Japan. All the vaccinated people are passing Delta around. The viral load is very high in vaccinated people. Specifically, when they check the viral load in people who've been vaccinated and they compare it to last year, vaccinated people are carrying 251 times the viral load. Another study put it at close to 1,000 times. The good news, if you've already had COVID, you are immune and you will stay immune. I'm just saying that because it's obvious from years of immunology and microbiology. We know that that's the case, but they're trying to gaslight the entire world and tell you that natural immunity doesn't exist. And I'm here to tell you, not only did we know it existed, there's now studies specifically to show that natural immunity is of course better than this vaccine immunity. Lead author Gazit, G-A-Z-I-T, from Israel is one of those studies. Now, good news is, even though I said that the Delta variant is being carried in very high numbers by vaxxed people, and so people that are getting exposed are getting hit with a high viral load, Delta is still highly recoverable, just like all the other variants. So it is contagious, but you're going to recover from it the same as people recovered in the past. So don't live in fear over this. And the best news, early treatment will always continue to work. So if we had just let this run its natural course, it would have been in the rearview mirror by now, but we interfered with the process. We scientists interfered with the process. But people always ask me, will the early treatment work? The answer is absolutely, will continue to work. Now, none of this is surprising. The shots were not approved to stop transmission, and now we know they don't stop transmission. So, I have to say to you, I won't even say that one. They're trying to push you to take a shot that doesn't work, and that you should take it against your will. So I said the government is pushing a vaccine that is so effective, you need a booster, and so safe they don't want to approve the booster. It's crazy. Only the government could say that. Now, those are the facts, but let's turn our attention to the real war, which is the vaccine passports. It's the vaccine passports. That's a communist Chinese tool in the infrastructure to control you and me. I'm going to give you a specific example of where we're headed if we don't win this fight. I went to a Dodgers game recently, and they require you to wear a mask, and I just said, you know what, just for this one time, I'll put the mask on. We get to the front, and we made a little fuss. Wasn't a big fuss, but a little fuss. So we were already targeted, we weren't being perfectly compliant. But we get through, and as we're walking through, we take the mask off, so they keep coming up to us, put the mask on, right? And then we do until they leave, and then we go about our business. We then go and we buy a drink. And we go to pay for the drink with a credit card. And that's when it hit me. The social control of people telling you to put the mask on is annoying, right? They're coming up to you, they're bothering you. But imagine if with a flick of a switch, they could turn off my credit cards if I'm not behaving. Okay, so a vaccine passport is the first step towards an everything passport, including digital currency. That's where we're going if we don't win. Now, if we don't win this fight to maintain our individual rights, including the right not to be tracked, to be anonymous, we will soon lose all freedom. How does 1% control the other 99%? Not by having more policemen. This will not look like Nazi Germany. This version of communism will be shiny with all the evil hidden underneath. No one to even complain to. It will be bureaucratic social control. So what I'm saying to you is, don't obsess about the shots. That shows you don't understand what the real fight is. Once you understand that you are fighting communism, you will let your inner warrior out. Go on the offensive. Do not be defensive. That's right. That's right. Every single person can push back to some degree. One of the most important ways you can fight back, something that gives me great hope, is focusing on the children. Why am I hopeful? Because I know what effective fighting looks like, and it appears that Americans are getting on board. Effective fighting is rescuing the future, and that is with homeschooling. I find it quite remarkable, a turn of events. Leave it to God to have the last laugh. I'm a product of the public school system, as are my children. This was not really on my radar screen, but I'm looking around the world, and it's homeschooling. It's homeschooling. In the past year, homeschooling has doubled. We still have, and we will continue to have, an unfettered right to homeschool our children. Nations that are further along on the communist path than we are actually prohibit their children from being primarily schooled by their parents, because that would allow parental love and filial obligation to flourish. When children belong to the state, of course parents cannot be their educators. Now, never did you and I think that children would be turned against God and country and family by the schools. But that is exactly what is happening. You must leave the public school system. Yeah, that's right. It must be bankrupted. You must do this for your own sake, and you must do this for the nation's sake. And let me explain both reasons. Communist Lenin said, "Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted. Give us the child for 8 years, and it will be socialist forever. Destroy the family, and you destroy the country." If you keep your children in the school system, the odds of your children having the same value system as you is at best 50-50, and quite frankly, I think it's more like 10%. Because young people are heavily influenced by the social environment. How heartbroken will you be to lose your son or daughter to communism, to sit across the Christmas table or the Thanksgiving table with a raging communist who doesn't believe anything like you believe? I know so many people this has happened to. It's heartbreaking. Lenin said, we must rescue children from the harmful influence of the family. We must nationalize them. From the earliest days of their little lives, they must find themselves under the beneficent influence of communist schools, to oblige the mother to give her child to the communist state. In addition to vastly improving the odds of a strong family relationship for yourself, children who are homeschooled are not going to hate our nation. So, let's talk about the obstacles. They fall into 3 categories. I don't have time, I don't know enough, I can't afford it. Absolutely wrong on all 3. Right? Let's say, we have such short time, I'm just gonna keep talking. Let's say you don't have time. Look what happened in the last year and a half. You're pulling them in, you're pushing them out, you're putting masks on, you're putting masks off. Is this one sick? Are they gonna send my kid home? How do I drive? Are you joking? I don't know why anyone put up with that. Like, don't say you don't have time. It's time neutral. If anything, you'll end up saving time with homeschooling. Number 2, I don't know enough. This is really a complete myth. There's tremendous resources and online programs and communities to do this. It's just flat out wrong. You don't have to sit there and teach your child, like father or mother to child, and know all the algebra and all the geography and all the history, right? There's tremendous resources out there. That one's just plain wrong. I can't afford it. There's so many ways to do this inexpensively. You hire a college-age young woman or young man to kind of supervise. I like the concept of micro-schooling. You get 5 families together, 10, 12 kids all together. You hire a college kid. They supervise the online program that you choose. You choose it based on what you like. The kids don't have to be the same age. They're all doing their own thing. You've got a young adult there to supervise. You're not having parental-child conflict. And then you're free all afternoon, right? So, homeschooling has doubled this past year from 5.5% to 11%. Raising sensible, God-loving, patriotic human beings is the way out of this. This is how you fight. You stop your children from ingesting poison. Now, here's the hard part, okay? You stop being selfish and holding out your own convenience as the reason not to homeschool. Stop making excuses. I talked to a young woman just a few days ago, and she's trying to help parents homeschool, and they're saying things, I don't want to drive 20 minutes, okay? Stop it. Stop it. Think it through. Do you want to sit across the table like when your young adult child is disrespectful to you and a communist? Think it through. Be rational. Do this. Now, the war on the United States of America is here. America's frontline doctors offers some relief from this tyranny. For those of you who are ready to stand up for yourselves, which is always the people Clay Clark attracts, let me tell you how we're here to help you. One, we want to help you ensure your personal medical freedom. All year and a half, you are with doctors who are not helping you. You go to America's Frontline Doctors, you can arrange a telemedicine consult, you get your hands on early treatment medicines, and you stop being afraid to the extent that you're afraid, right? So you have the medical freedom, so they can't scare you with that. By the way, please get the medicines early. One of the most heartbreaking things is when I keep getting texts or emails from people who sent a loved one to the hospital, totally unnecessary if you have early medicines, okay? AFLDS.org/meds. Number two, how do you fight back? You need people to fight with. AFLDS.org/citizens. That's how you find people in your area. We will pair you with people in your neck of the woods. Three, don't allow yourself to be coerced. If your job is trying to coerce you, if you bend your knee, you literally won't be the same person the next week. Okay? Okay. So, we are bringing many lawsuits to help you, but the very basic advice is you don't quit. In the worst case scenario, if you're fired, most people will get unemployment and they'll regroup and they'll figure it out. But if you bend your knee to a human overlord, you will regret it. Now, I just want to share you in the 2 minutes that I have left, because I know it's been a long day, some of the lawsuits that America's Frontline Doctors is bringing to try to help retain all the, the freedoms that we've loved all of our life. We have about 5 lawsuits pending, but I made a pretty big announcement yesterday that I want to share with you right now. We sued the Department of Defense on behalf of our soldiers. I have to spend a little bit of time on this lawsuit because we are in Colorado Springs, and I need all of you to get the word out to the soldiers, every social media, every resource you have, so that they know that this fight is here, that the decision hasn't yet been made. So we filed this lawsuit a few weeks ago, but on Friday, we made an addendum, right, to the complaint, and we added 4 affidavits, which are very dramatic. I'm going to share with you what was said. We asked the Department of Defense to immediately halt the shots to all military personnel. But what we included expert witness testimony, hear this, from 2 military doctors and military professors about the contents in the vaccine, which contains, one of the items is polyethylene glycol, which is an antifreeze. So these are military doctors that are attesting to this. And one of the military doctors, an Army Lieutenant Colonel, who is the head flight surgeon at Fort Rutger and is responsible for the health safety of all Army air crews on her base, stated in her expert opinion, All military flight crew who have received any of the biological products should be grounded from flying until they are screened for the heart damage that we know is happening, especially in young males. This is very dramatic stuff. She is the person in charge of saying if the pilot is safe to fly or not. And she is saying, no, they are not safe until we change this policy. She attested to the fact that a helicopter pilot died this week, 2 days after the shot, with a pregnant wife. Okay? There's 2 more soldiers in the ICU at Fort Hood. Now, why is this so important? Now there's a bit of a stalemate, and we need the judge to look at this. She's saying, I am the person who is certifying this, and I'm saying the pilots are not safe to fly. So let's see what the judge says. From America's frontline doctors' perspective, we are bringing this type of strategic litigation to help ensure that we maintain our freedoms. I can't go into too much more because, there's so many other people that need to speak, but for yourself, right? Don't quit your job. Stand up for your rights. AFLDS.org/religious if you want to file for a religious exemption. Leave the public schools. Be joyful. Be joyful. And my last thing, I am not here to wake up the sheep. I am here to wake up the other lions.